They say conquerors take everything, cities, crowns, even lives. But after Constantinople fell, Sultan Mehmed II did something to Princess Theodora that defied every rule of war and every expectation of history. What happened in that shattered throne room was so shocking. Both empires buried it for centuries. Bloodstone Histories now uncovers the truth they never wanted the world to hear. The marble is still warm, not from sunlight, but from blood. You're standing in what used to be the throne room of the Byzantine emperors. Shattered mosaics crunch under boots, Ottoman boots, through smoke, stained windows, Constantinople burns. A city that survived 100 years is reduced to ash and screams in a single morning. And in the middle of that destruction stands a 15-year-old girl, hands blackened with kitchen soot, hair chopped short and uneven. She's dressed in a servant's rough wool, but it didn't matter. They found her anyway. Princess Theodora Palaeologina, last daughter of Byzantium. Across from her, seated on a portable throne still smelling of siege camps and gunpowder, sits the man who ended her world, Sultan Mehmed II. 21 years old, dark eyes burning with something between triumph and calculation. His commanders stand behind him, arms crossed, waiting. They already know what comes next. Everyone does. Islamic law is clear on the fate of noble captives after a city is taken by force. 3 days of pillage, 3 days where everything, and everyone, belongs to the victors. Theodora's breathing is shallow. She tries not to tremble. The Sultan says nothing. Outside, the screaming continues. But what Mehmed is about to do in the next 72 hours, what he decides about this girl standing in front of him, will reveal something about conquest that neither side wanted history to remember. A decision so unexpected it stayed buried for centuries, lost under propaganda from two empires that both preferred simpler stories, because sometimes the most dangerous truth isn't about the brutality of war. It's about the mercy that follows. What do you do with the princess of a fallen empire? And why would a conqueror who just unleashed hell on her city make a choice that broke every rule of medieval warfare? Before we step back into that moment, let me be clear. Research like this, the kind that challenges easy historical narratives, only survives because of your support. If this matters to you, hit like and subscribe. That's what keeps us deep in the archives, finding history that was never meant to be found. Now, back to May 29th, 1453. Back to the day the world permanently changed, 57 days earlier, spring 1453. The world's oldest Christian empire is dying, and you can smell it in the air. Constantinople, the queen of cities 11 centuries old. It survived the Huns after Rome fell, survived the Arabs, even survived the Crusaders who sacked it in 1204. Its walls, built by Emperor Theodosius in 413 AD, have never been breached by force. Until now, 80,000 Ottoman soldiers surround the city, 200 warships choke the Golden Horn, and on the hills stand shapes that make veterans cross themselves, cannons. One of them is 27 feet long, designed by a Hungarian engineer named Orban, who first offered his work to the Byzantines. They couldn't pay him, so he went to the Ottomans. When it fires, the ground trembles 3 miles away. The stone balls weigh 200 pounds. They slam into walls that have stood for 1,000 years, and the impact sounds like the world cracking open. Inside, 7-0 defenders, Greeks, Venetians, Genoese men who have already done the math and know exactly how this ends. Church bells never stop ringing. Priests carry icons older than most kingdoms, praying for miracles. Citizens barricade doors because everyone knows the law. When a city falls by force, the victorious army gets 3 days to take whatever they want. In the Great Palace lives what's left of the Palaiologos dynasty. Emperor Constantine Roman XI, 48 years old, unmarried, childless, knows he will die defending his capital, not maybe, certainly. His extended family, cousins, nephews, distant relatives, still live in marble halls that echo too much now. Among them is Theodora 15, educated in Greek classics and Latin, fluent in Arabic, impressive talents that mean nothing when cannons are tearing your world apart. What she wants is impossible, for tomorrow to be like yesterday. What she fears is specific, becoming one of the thousands of captives treated like livestock after the city falls. She doesn't know it yet, but in 57 days she'll stand before a 21-year-old conqueror in a throne room soaked in blood, and her survival will depend on something stranger than luck or beauty. It will depend on the psychology of a young sultan trying to prove he's more than just a warlord. Across those walls, Sultan Mehmed Roman II studies maps by candlelight. 21 years old, can't sleep. He's already been sultan twice, first at 12 overthrown within 2 years, too young, too weak. His father came back, ruled again, died, and left Mehmed to try once more at 19. European courts mock him as the boy sultan. His own janissaries doubt him. Everywhere he turns, he feels the shadow of his father, Murad the Great. Mehmed is short, stocky, with eyes described as burning. He speaks 6 languages, reads about Alexander the Great obsessively, sleeps with a copy of Arrian's campaigns under his pillow. He doesn't just want to conquer Constantinople. He wants to become Caesar. Not symbolically, literally, the legitimate Roman emperor, because Constantinople isn't just a city. It's legitimacy itself. Control it, and you become the heir of Augustus, of Constantine. Fail, and everything he is ends. 57 days of feeding 80,000 soldiers. The treasury is bleeding. His advisors whisper betrayal. But there's something else forming in Mehmed's mind. Something his generals haven't understood yet. He's not just planning a conquest. He's planning a transformation. And that will change everything for the girl in the palace whose world has only 57 days left. If this moment in history doesn't move you, if it doesn't show how empires truly fall, not with glory but with terror and impossible choices, you might be missing the lesson written in blood on those marble floors. Stay with me, because what comes next reveals something about human nature that neither conquerors nor the conquered wanted preserved. May 28, 1453. One day before the end, in the great palace, Theodora's mother cuts her daughter's hair off, uneven chunks dropping to the marble floor. Theodora sits perfectly still, watching black strands scatter. Her mother's name is lost to history. Chronicles call her Lady Euprosine when they bother mentioning her at all. Right now, her hands shake as she rubs kitchen soot on Theodora's fingers and dresses her in coarse wool that scratches her skin. Noble women will be claimed as prizes. She whispers. Servants might be ignored. She doesn't say the rest. She doesn't have to. Let them think you're worthless. That evening, Mehmed makes an offer that shocks even his commanders. Surrender now. Everyone goes free. Constantine can rule the Peloponnese as an Ottoman vassal. No blood, no siege. A messenger rides to the palace under a white flag. Constantine meets him wearing armor under his imperial robes. According to the chronicler Francis, who stood in that room, the emperor's voice is calm. To surrender the city is beyond my authority or anyone else's who lives in it. All of us have decided to die of our own free will. The messenger returns. Mehmed's face doesn't change. He simply gives the order. Final assault at dawn. 2 rulers, 2 impossible positions. 1 throne that only one of them will leave alive. That night, the entire city flows into the Hagia Sophia, Orthodox and Catholic, together for the first time in decades. Their theological battles forgotten in the face of death. Thousands pack the cathedral. Candles flicker off gold mosaics. Voices rise in desperate prayer. Theodora kneels among them in her disguise, unrecognizable now. Just another servant girl. Around her, old men weep. Men who remember when Constantinople had 300 citizens. Young mothers hold children who will never grow old. Outside, Ottoman drums begin their rhythm. Slow at first, then faster, louder. 80,000 voices roar. Allahu Akbar. The chronicler Daucus wrote the sound was so powerful it felt like the earth answered back. Inside the Hagia Sophia, prayers falter. Then rise again, louder, more desperate. Theodora's lips move with the words, but she isn't really praying anymore. She's memorizing the mosaics, the smell of incense, her mother's hand gripping hers. This is the last moment of the world she knows. They return to the palace close to midnight. The streets are empty, everyone locked inside, waiting. Theodora lies awake in the dark, listening to her mother breathe beside her. Neither of them speaks. What is there to say when you're waiting for the world to end? In the Ottoman camp, soldiers sharpen their blades, check armor, pray. Mehmed walks among their fires, stopping to speak to different units in their own languages. Turkish, Arabic, Persian, promising paradise or plunder, whichever matters more to them. But his mind isn't on tomorrow's assault anymore. It's on what comes after the walls fall, after the city burns, after the 3 days of pillage his men expect. What comes after conquest? To his generals the answer is obvious: loot, slaves, glory. But Mehmed wants something different, something they don't fully grasp yet. He doesn't just want to be a conqueror, he wants to be Caesar, not just a warlord, but an emperor, the legitimate heir of Rome itself. And emperors don't just destroy, they transform. The question is whether his men will let him. At 1 a.m., the drums begin for real. In the palace, Theodora jolts awake. Her mother stands at the window, watching the horizon glow with watchfires. It's starting. Theodora gets up, still wearing her servant's disguise, soot still staining her hands. They don't embrace. They just stand together as the drums get louder and the first screams drift over the walls. The last dawn of Byzantium is breaking, and neither of them knows that in less than 8 hours, Theodora will stand before a conqueror who is supposed to claim her like a prize, but won't. May 29th, 1453. 1:00 a.m. 3 waves slam into the walls like a human tide. First wave, irregulars, untrained, expendable troops thrown forward to wear out the defenders. They die by the hundreds, arrows, boiling oil, stones, but more keep coming. Second wave, Anatolian regulars, disciplined, armored, methodical. The defenders are exhausted now, running low on arrows, on strength, on hope. Third wave, the Janissaries, elite soldiers, the Sultan's personal guard, taken as boys and trained for war their entire lives. They don't rush. They move forward like steel, and wherever they press, the line starts to break. 5:00 a.m. Disaster. Giovanni Giustiniani, the Genoese commander leading the main defense, takes an arrow through his breastplate. Panicking, he demands to be carried back to his ships. When his Italian mercenaries see their commander leaving, their formation collapses. Just like that, the professionals who held the line for 57 days step back, lower their weapons, and start looking for escape routes. The Ottomans sense it instantly. They push harder. Then someone notices the Kirkapor, a gate, a small postern door that should have been locked. Someone forgot to shut it after a night sortie. An Ottoman soldier named Ulubatli Hassan sees the opening. He charges through with about 30 men and raises an Ottoman banner where Byzantine soldiers can see it. Enemy flags inside the walls, morale explodes like glass. Men abandon their posts, running to find family, boats, anywhere that isn't here. Emperor Constantine Roman XI sees it happening. He tears off his imperial insignia and hurls himself into the thickest fighting, reportedly shouting, "The city has fallen and I am still alive." His body is never definitively identified. The last Roman emperor disappears into the chaos like smoke. By 8:00 a.m., Ottoman soldiers pour through 6 breach points. A city that stood for 100 years falls in roughly 7 hours. What follows is one of the most brutal days in medieval history. Soldiers loot every home. Citizens barricaded inside are smoked out or burned alive. Men are cut down in the streets. Women and children are rounded up like livestock. Between 30:00 and 50:00 people are enslaved in a single day. The Hagia Sophia turns into a trap. Thousands fled there for sanctuary. Ottoman troops smash through the bronze doors, drag priests away mid-prayer, and start selecting the most valuable captives. Beautiful women, strong young men, children who can be trained. The great palace falls by late morning. Ottoman soldiers storm marble corridors, ripping down crosses, hunting for members of the imperial family. Some nobles commit suicide. Others hide in cisterns, cellars, hidden passages. Theodora, dressed as a kitchen servant, squeezes herself into a storage room behind rows of amphorae filled with olive oil, heart pounding as she listens to boots pounding past, to screams echoing through the same halls where she once danced. Hours pass, the wild chaos slowly turns into something more organized, systematic looting, systematic searching. Eventually they find her. Her hands are too soft, her voice too polished. Soot and rough wool can't erase 15 years of court training. Noon, Mehmed rides a white Arabian stallion through the Adrianople gate. He heads straight for the Hagia Sophia, not to destroy it, but to claim it. He picks up a handful of earth and pours it over his turban in an Islamic gesture of humility, then steps into the 1,000-year-old cathedral and declares, "This shall become a mosque." An imam recites the call to prayer. The greatest church in Christendom becomes Hagia Sophia Kamei, but then Mehmed does something no one expects. He orders the pillaging to stop. After only 1 day instead of 3, soldiers complain, but they obey. He declares that any citizens still hiding will not be harmed. Former residents can return. Churches will be protected. He isn't just taking a city. He's announcing himself as the new Roman emperor, and emperors need people to rule, not piles of bodies. His Grand Vizier begins compiling lists of captured nobles. On one of those lists is a teenage girl found in the palace pretending to be a servant. Princess Theodora is brought into the throne room. The marble hall reeks of smoke, shattered mosaics crunch underfoot, dark bloodstains spread across the floor. Mehmed sits on his portable throne, dressed in white silk, wearing an enormous turban pinned with a jeweled brooch, deliberately echoing Roman imperial style. Theodora is shoved forward, still in servant's clothes, shaking with fear. Ottoman court protocol demands she throw herself to the floor. She freezes. Mehmed studies her, then speaks fluent Greek. "You are of the Paleologos line. I am. Where is your father? Dead in the siege." The room goes silent. His commanders assume he'll claim her as a concubine. That's standard. The remaining Byzantine attendants expect either execution or slavery. Mehmed asks one more question. "Can you read and write Greek, Latin, and some Arabic?" Silence. Then the unthinkable happens. Sultan Mehmed II orders Princess Theodora released, not as a slave, not as a concubine, but as a free woman under state protection. He grants her a stipend, a residence in the Far district, and full permission to practice Christianity openly. The room explodes into confused whispers. No one knows how to process what they're seeing. This moment, this single decision in a blood-soaked throne room, is exactly why the story was buried by both sides. Western writers wanted tales of Ottoman brutality to rally crusades. Ottoman historians wanted to celebrate military triumph. Neither wanted this, a 21-year-old conqueror showing mercy that broke every rule of medieval conquest. If stories like this about impossible choices and unexpected humanity in history's darkest hours matter to you, hit subscribe, because the past isn't simple. It has never been simple, and remembering that might be the most important thing we do. So why did he do it? That question haunts historians. Why would a 21-year-old ruler, fresh from the greatest military victory of the century, show mercy to the daughter of the empire he just destroyed? The answer is in the title he claimed for himself, Caesari Rum, Caesar of Rome. Mehmed didn't just want to conquer Constantinople, he wanted to become it. To be the legitimate Roman emperor, he needed continuity with the Byzantine past, not its erasure. Showing mercy to the imperial family demonstrated magnanimitas, a Roman virtue. Protecting Christians positioned him as ruler of all his subjects, not just Muslims. But it went deeper than propaganda. Some historians, including Franz Babinger, believe Mehmed may have considered marrying a Byzantine princess to reinforce his claim as the true successor to Constantine the Great. Whether Theodora was part of that plan is unclear. But the extraordinary mercy shown to her suggests he was thinking far beyond simple victory. And his reforms didn't end with her. Mehmed appointed Gennadios Scholarios, a prominent Byzantine scholar, as the new Orthodox Patriarch and granted him civil authority over all Orthodox Christians in the empire. a Muslim sultan elevating a Christian religious leader, unheard of at the time. The message was unmistakable. This wasn't the end of Byzantium. This was its transformation under new leadership. Princess Theodora lived under Ottoman protection for 3 years in Constantinople, part of a small Byzantine community, Mehmed intentionally preserved. She witnessed the city's transformation, mosques rising beside churches, Greek scholars entering Ottoman service, the Sultan founding libraries and universities. In 1456, she was allowed to leave for the Mora, where fragments of the Byzantine state survived under Ottoman oversight. Later accounts suggest she married a minor noble, lived until around 1480, and died in obscurity, but free. Her story was suppressed for different reasons. Western chroniclers wanted tales of pure brutality. Mercy made crusades harder to justify. How do you rally Christian armies against an enemy who protects Christian princesses? Ottoman historians preferred stories of unstoppable conquest. Mehmed's protection of Christians hinted at uncomfortable complexity. Easier to keep the narrative simple, but the reality was not simple for the thousands who weren't so fortunate. Tens of thousands remained enslaved, sold across markets from Cairo to Crimea. Meanwhile, Byzantine scholars fled west, carrying the knowledge that helped ignite the Italian Renaissance. And the fall of Constantinople reshaped the entire planet. Ottoman control made old trade routes risky and expensive, pushing Spain and Portugal to search for new passageways to Asia. Within 40 years, Columbus sailed west, looking for India and crashing into the Americas. One city's fall changed the world. Yet hidden inside the Ottoman archives are documents that tell the version both sides tried to erase. Mehmed protecting Byzantine nobles, appointing Christians to administrative posts, preserving Greek learning. These reveal a ruler trying to build a cosmopolitan empire, not just a religious state. The irony is sharp. The conqueror, who destroyed Byzantium, preserved its people more effectively than the Byzantine emperors of the past 2 centuries, who had been crippled by civil wars, theological infighting, and economic collapse. Around 1500, Greeks remained in Constantinople as protected subjects. They became the foundation of the Phanerot community, which administered Orthodox affairs in the empire for 4 centuries. And the girl who once hid behind jars of olive oil became part of a story neither side wanted told. Survival through transformation, continuity through conquest. Mehmed, the boy sultan, understood something his generals did not. Empires aren't built by erasing everything that came before. They're built by absorbing it. Here's what stays with me from this story. We want history to be simple. Monsters and heroes, victims and victors. Clean lines between good and evil, but Theodora's survival, and the survival of thousands like her, reveals something far more uncomfortable. A 21-year-old sultan who allowed slaughter could also show strategic mercy that saved lives. A 15-year-old princess who lost everything could survive through her mother's cunning, her own adaptability, and a conqueror's hunger for legitimacy. Empires never end neatly. Victors need the conquered more than they admit. Survival often comes not from compassion, but from power's need to justify itself. This is the truth buried in palace archives. The truth that made both sides uncomfortable. Because if conquerors can show mercy for strategic reasons, and if the conquered can survive, even thrive, under new rulers, then our simple narratives fall apart. History becomes messier, more human, more honest. How many other princesses, scribes, or ordinary people slipped through catastrophe because someone powerful needed them alive? How many stories like Theodora's were buried because they complicated the propaganda of both sides? And what does it say about us that we still prefer clean stories of brutality or triumph over the complicated truth of survival? Picture that throne room one last time. A girl who should have died standing before a sultan, barely older than her. Both trapped in roles history wrote for them, both finding unexpected paths through the ruins of empire. Mercy and massacre walked side by side through the burning streets of Constantinople. And sometimes the most important question isn't who won. It's who survived, why they survived, and what that survival cost. The historian Critouvulos wrote years later, "The city that endured for more than 1,000 years fell in a single morning, but the people, some of them, endured much longer." And in that endurance lies a truth more complex than any tale of glory or defeat. If stories like this remind you how fragile humanity is, how complex the past really was, and how much we still have to learn from the archives both sides tried to erase, subscribe to Bloodstone Histories and help keep the past alive. Because the darkest secrets of history aren't about the brutality we expect. They're about the humanity we never saw,